Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vasadeveshari Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So, I think I described up to what I went and told Bhavananda Prabhu. Anyway, so I was fortunate to continue to be with Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada went to Bombay to Cross Maidan program. At that time, Prabhupada's quarters in the new tower of the Juhu temple was being built. And when Prabhupada arrived, Prabhupada was taken to his usual quarters at the back of the plot where the old buildings were there. And so Prabhupada used to have his quarters there, and when he was taken there, Prabhupada didn't want to go there. Prabhupada said, what about the new quarters? And the new quarters was not ready, but Prabhupada insisted that ready or not, he wanted to stay in the new quarters. And so the doors were not properly fixed, the lift was not working, and it's on the 5th floor. So the devotees were in great anxiety what to do, but Prabhupada just insisted that he wanted to stay in his new quarters. And so as usual, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, as I mentioned, he is such an expert manager. He came up with a bright idea, and he convinced Srila Prabhupada that actually Prabhupada insisted that whatever reasons they gave that Prabhupada shouldn't stay, but Prabhupada just insisted that no, he wanted to stay there. Like they said that the work is not complete, there will be a lot of noise, and Prabhupada said, noise or no noise, I'm going to stay here. Prabhupada, they said that the lift was not ready, but still Prabhupada insisted that he wanted to stay there. And finally, Tamal Krishna Maharaj came up with an idea, and he told Prabhupada that the program is in Cross Maidan in Bombay, and from Juhu to Bombay is a long drive, and with the traffic jam, in Bombay, it would be to take a long time for Prabhupada to go every day and come back. So it would be better that Prabhupada stayed in Bombay itself and in the city. So there was one very wealthy person who had great admiration for Srila Prabhupada. His name was Bhogilal Patel. He was a very rich man. I think he had about 100 vintage cars. He was a big collector of vintage cars, and few of them were Rolls Royces. And so Bhogilal Patel, the arrangement was made that, he wanted to make arrangements. Sometimes Prabhupada stayed in Bhogilal Patel's house. But unfortunately, Bhogilal Patel at that time was out of India. So then finally the arrangement was made in the house of one Mr. Kartikeya Mahadevia. It's in the Sea Face apartments. Srinathji Prabhu's old apartments, where he used to live in that area. And Srinathji's house was just in another. There were about 7 towers, and so in one of those towers was Kartikeya Mahadevi's apartment, and it was arranged that Prabhupada would stay in Kartikeya Mahadevi's house. And And he was such a nice person, he vacated the whole apartment for Srila Prabhupada, and he with his whole family moved to another apartment in the same building. And so Prabhupada stayed there for the program in Cross Maidan. And Prabhupada's health condition was quite bad at that time. So every evening Prabhupada used to go to give the lecture, and then Prabhupada would come back to the house. After giving the lecture, Prabhupada would come back and the program would continue. And I used to come back with Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, although his health condition was so weak, but still Prabhupada, once he would start to speak, Prabhupada would become another personality. That was an amazing thing to note about Srila Prabhupada. Like I would see that Prabhupada would, when he would go there, he would sit in his Vasasan, kind of, since he could see that he was so exhausted, he was kind of bending, hunched over and with tiredness and weakness. But then Prabhupada, as he would start to speak, his body would become straighter, more and more straight. And then finally, Prabhupada would be sitting there straight, upright as a bolt, sitting at the edge of the seat. Prabhupada would be speaking at the pitch of his voice. And I remember somebody was challenging Prabhupada. Sometimes some people would be quite challenging. And this person's question was that why you worship only Krishna and you don't worship Ram. So Prabhupada first tried to explain that Ram and Krishna is the same, and we also worship Ram because we chant Hare Ram, Hare Ram. But this man was quite obnoxiously challenging, and he would not listen, and quite defiant. And finally, Prabhupada was actually shouting at the pitch of his voice, and even the audience became so disgusted with this person, they literally carried him out and threw him out. And another very sweet incident I remember from that was Prabhupada noticed that there was a Muslim gentleman standing in the crowd. He was an Arab. He was dressed up in his Arabian attire, and he was in the crowd. Prabhupada noticed it, and Prabhupada sent one of his sannyasis to call that man up on the stage. And that man was brought to the stage, and he was made to sit next to Srila Prabhupada on a chair. Prabhupada's Vasasan was in the middle of the stage, and it was flanked by rows of chairs where the sannyasis were sitting, and some guests came, and dignified guests came and sat there. And Prabhupada made this Muslim gentleman, sit on the seat next to him. And Prabhupada was having very sweet exchange with him, and I could hear everything because I was fanning Srila Prabhupada. So, and it turned out that man was the chief of police from Kuwait. He came to Bombay for medical treatment, and that was the first day he was allowed to go out of the hospital. And he came out of the hospital and he just came for a walk on this park. And he saw this big crowd and some program. So out of curiosity, he just came over there and he was watching. And Prabhupada just invited him onto the stage. And it must have been such an impressive, such a powerful sight. Here's a big spiritual leader with thousands of people attending his program. And next to him is this typical Muslim gentleman from Kuwait, dressed up in typical Arab attires. And that showed how broad Srila Prabhupada's vision was. And Prabhupada was talking to that man, and that man had some, the Muslims have some beads, they kind of, especially in Middle East you find them. In India they don't do that. And so this man was he had these beads. So Prabhupada asked what he was doing with that, what was that meant for. The man didn't have any answer. He said that he just fiddles with it. Prabhupada said, no, it's actually meant for chanting the name of the Lord. And then Prabhupada pulled out his beads. See, I also have one. Prabhupada showed him his beads. And then Prabhupada said that this is sacred, these beads are sacred, so we keep it in a bag. So you also keep your bead in a bag. And you also chant the holy name of the Lord. Prabhupada didn't ask him to chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada just told him to chant the holy name of the Lord. And in that respect, when one of our godbrothers, Ravanari Prabhu, was translating Bhagavad Gita, and he asked what he should write, Bhagavan Uvacha. And Prabhupada said he could write Allah Uvacha. Allah said. And so that is how broad was Srila Prabhupada's vision and his understanding, spiritual clarity. And in this way, Prabhupada was having a very sweet exchange with that person. Prabhupada even asked him to speak, but he didn't want to speak. He did speak. He did speak, very briefly. But he requested not to mention that he is the chief of police of Kuwait, because it could have been, if it was publicized, he could have been in trouble. So this Cross Maidan program was so amazing, and Prabhupada was so preaching. Whenever Prabhupada preached, he was so forceful, so definite, and so assertive. And then after the program, Prabhupada used to go back to the house, the apartment of Kartikeya Mahadevi, and I used to go with him, and I used to give him a massage. Prabhupada used to just lie down right after that, and I used to give him a massage. And one day Prabhupada was asking, so how did you like my lecture today? So I said, Prabhupada, it was great. And Prabhupada asked, what was so great about it? And so I mentioned whatever I could remember from that lecture. And Prabhupada was pleased that we listened attentively. And so after a few days, when the program was over, Prabhupada went back to Juhu temple. By that time, Prabhupada's quarters were made ready. And Prabhupada, those days the temple was not complete. The deities of Radha Rashbihari were in a small little makeshift temple. You know how Radharaj Behare's temple used to be at that time? Juhu temple seems to be so grand now. It was just a tin structure, like corrugated tin sheets on top, and the walls were just some very, very simple brick wall, and also it was, good part of it was tin. And that was our temple. But there were many, many devotees. And I remember that temple room was sort of ready, not complete, but that the altar was not ready, but the area in front where Prabhupada's Vasasan is, and that the front of the temple. So when Prabhupada arrived, he gave darshan there, and they washed Prabhupada's feet, lotus feet, and the devotees did the Guru Puja, and that place was packed. There were so many devotees actually. Although the temple was not complete, but because Prabhupada was there, and it was soon after Mayapur, I think many devotees traveled to Bombay to that and came to be with Srila Prabhupada. There were so many devotees, the room was packed. I remember there used to be one frangipani tree on the courtyard. Like the temple area, and then the stairs, and then the courtyard. In that courtyard there was a frangipani tree, and probably you know that the frangipani tree is very delicate. It looks quite big, but actually the branches are very soft and tender. And one devotee, he was from BI, his name was Madhav, he was a PhD, Dr. Michael Marchetti. And because Prabhupada he couldn't see Srila Prabhupada, and I think he wanted to take photograph. So he climbed up the tree and the branches gave in, and he fell from, he didn't get hurt so badly, but it was, he couldn't figure out that this tree the branches could be so soft that then Prabhupada was staying in Bombay, and I was with Prabhupada. By the time Upendra Prabhu joined our team, so Upendra Prabhu was Prabhupada's personal servant, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was his secretary, and I was just there in the team, and well, in a way as Prabhupada's secretary, and I was also translating. So, but I used to have a lot of time. My first service to Prabhupada was that at 7 o'clock I used to go to Srila Prabhupada with all the newspapers, and I used to read out the headings. Prabhupada wanted me to get the newspapers and read out the headings of the news. And if Prabhupada liked some news, then he would ask me to read them. And while reading the news, Prabhupada would give some interesting comments. And Indira Gandhi she called emergency actually at that time, and Prabhupada was very, very annoyed with that. She called an emergency, and Prabhupada really got the news that she was, not her, but her son, Sanjay Gandhi, was torturing the sadhus. So, anyway, so one day I was reading some news about Indira Gandhi, and Prabhupada started to speak about the Nehru family. Prabhupada used to know the family quite well, and he started to tell me, just like that what a corrupt and degraded family that was, and they were ruling over the country. And Prabhupada also commented about Indira Gandhi's character. She was a very loose woman. Anyway, Prabhupada even told about Nehru's sister, Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. She was another character, according to Srila Prabhupada. And at that time, Prabhupada also mentioned that Nehru took birth as a dog in Sweden. So one day, those days, we were just serving Srila Prabhupada, and actually it was a different world altogether. Just Prabhupada and few of us around him, right up on the tower, right up on that ivory tower with Srila Prabhupada. And I rarely went down, actually. I was there the whole day, 24 hours a day. And one day I told Prabhupada that I asked him whether I could practice some yoga, because I was not getting any exercise, like the whole day in that place. And Prabhupada asked me why. So I told Prabhupada that I didn't get any. I was feeling quite sluggish and without any exercise. And then Prabhupada suggested that I go to the ocean and have a swim. He didn't want me to practice yoga for some reason. And so then I used to go in the afternoon. I used to go for a swim in the ocean. Prabhupada just suggested that I do that. And Prabhupada's, although very sick physically, but Prabhupada had a very routine schedule. Like Prabhupada used to take rest quite early, around 9 o'clock or so, and Prabhupada would wake up by about 11:30, and then he would start to translate, and he would translate through the night. And at night, from about 12 to 2 o'clock, I used to be with Srila Prabhupada. And by that time, Prabhupada was already translating. And I remember one day I was sitting there, just listening to Prabhupada translate in his dictaphone. And then Prabhupada told me not to sit there in front of him. I think Prabhupada was feeling a little awkward that he is translating and I'm watching him. So then I used to just sit behind the pillar, sort of hiding, and I used to watch Srila Prabhupada translate. He used to translate in the dictaphone. He had the Sanskrit Bhagavatam with the commentaries of all the acharyas. And Prabhupada used to just translate and give his purport. One day, those days, another thing that actually today Gauranga Prabhu was asking me how I started to cook for Srila Prabhupada. So I just thought of narrating that incident also. Those days, Mother Palika used to cook, one of her god sisters used to cook for Srila Prabhupada. And she used to cook and I used to serve. Like, after she used to cook, she used to make the plate and I had to carry the plate to Srila Prabhupada. And those days I used to wish if I could, I used to wish that I could cook for Srila Prabhupada. And prior to that, one incident happened in Mayapur. Maybe I can also narrate that as a prelude to this incident. At that time, Prabhupada didn't have a cook, and Harisauri Prabhu was Prabhupada's personal servant. And I was already included in the team. It was after Srila Prabhupada asked me to move next to him, his room, as his secretary. So one day, Harisauri Prabhu asked me whether I knew how to cook. Like once in a while I used to cook when I was in the West. Sometimes I used to cook. But that cooking was just no quality cooking. It's just novice endeavor. And so I just blurted out. I said, yes, I know how to cook. So Harisauri Prabhu told Prabhupada that I knew how to cook. And Prabhupada asked me to cook. And when I was told that Prabhupada wanted me to cook for him, then I realized that I didn't know how to cook. And at least how to cook for Srila Prabhupada. But fortunately, Prabhupada's sister Pishima was there. And she was an amazing cook. So I went and told Pishima that Prabhupada wanted me to cook, but I don't know how to really cook. And so I wanted her to help. She said, "Yeah, sure, come." And we walked into, I along with her walked into the kitchen, and she started to cook, and she prepared a feast. And so I carried the plate to Srila Prabhupada just had a look at the plate and he asked me who cooked. And I said, Prabhupada, Pishima cooked. Prabhupada was very annoyed. He told me, I asked you to cook. Why didn't you cook? Why did Pishima cook? And Prabhupada was so annoyed that he wanted me to take that plate away. And those days, I was just a new devotee. I didn't know. I was under the impression that whatever your spiritual master tells you, you just do that. So I just took the plate and walked away from there. And forever I felt extremely guilty for doing that. Later on I used to think, why didn't I insist on Srila Prabhupada? Why didn't I beg forgiveness and assured him that next day I would try to cook? But since then I never tried to cook for Srila Prabhupada. But the desire was there, that I wished that I could cook for Srila Prabhupada. And so when Palika used to cook, at that time, they got one Hawkins pressure cooker for Srila Prabhupada. And along with that pressure cooker came one cookbook. And sometimes I would cook something, experimenting on that. And along with other prasad that Palika cooked, I served to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada didn't notice, nor did I say anything, but I used to ask Palika how it tasted afterwards. And she used to encourage me. She used to tell me that was very good. And so that also increased my desire to cook for Srila Prabhupada. So one day Palika was sick and she couldn't cook for Srila Prabhupada. And another god sister of ours were asked to cook. And when I took the prasad to Srila Prabhupada and offered it to him, I could see that Prabhupada was not eating. He just took a bite and he didn't take it. So I asked Prabhupada, wasn't the prasad all right? And Prabhupada said, no, she doesn't know how to cook. So then I asked Prabhupada, should I cook for you tomorrow? Prabhupada said, yes, you can cook. And so I was excited. The next morning, Prabhupada asked me to bring few vegetables, and he showed me how to cut them. And those vegetables were parval and potatoes. Parval? Potol. In Hindi, what do you call that? Parval, yeah. So, and then Prabhupada showed me how to cut them. He showed me to scrape the outer skin, not cut the skin, but just scrape it with the back of the knife, take out the outer coating, and then cut them in cubes. Just slice them about 3/4 of an inch thick. And the potatoes also are cut in the same way, same cube size. And so I cut the vegetables and brought them to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked me to bring the turmeric and chili, red chili, whole red chili. And we were carrying a tin of mustard oil from Calcutta, which was actually meant for Prabhupada's massage, and that oil. So Prabhupada asked me to bring that container also. So Prabhupada asked me to put turmeric. I put a lot of turmeric in it. And then Prabhupada asked me to break the chili into pieces about 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch, and put a lot of chili in there. And then Prabhupada asked me to pour the oil, mustard oil. I poured a lot of oil, and Prabhupada was having a massage at that time. So I thought that Prabhupada probably was not noticing because he was taking the massage and I was pouring it there. So Prabhupada, and at one point I tilted the tin back and stopped pouring. And Prabhupada shouted, "Why did you stop pouring? Keep pouring." So I kept pouring, and he put a lot of oil, and then Prabhupada said, "Okay, now stop." And then Prabhupada asked me to put water to cover all the vegetables and potatoes with water. And of course he asked me to add salt. And then he said, just put it on the fire, the water will evaporate, and the white steam will start coming out, and it will start making a sound like chat 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 chat. So when it starts making that sound, so you take it off the fire and then cool it for some time, and then before serving you scrape it from the bottom and then you serve. Actually what happens is a lot of turmeric is there. The turmeric settles at the bottom, and because of the oil, so much oil, although it settles at the bottom and forms a crust, but it doesn't start burning because of the oil. It kind of gets fried, and it forms a crust, and the sabjis get cooked, and then when you scrape it, the crusts come out broken into chunks, and it's a very tasty preparation. And so anyway, I cooked some other stuffs also, and I served Srila Prabhupada. And then after serving Srila Prabhupada, I brought his plates to the kitchen, and I was cleaning the pots. Then after taking prasad, Prabhupada used to sit for a few minutes, about 10 minutes, and then Upendra used to take Srila Prabhupada to his bed, and Prabhupada used to lie down for a while. So, after putting Srila Prabhupada to bed, Upendra just came running to me and he said, "Hey, what did you cook? Prabhupada wanted me to taste it." And he said that he kind of appreciated my cooking to Upendra, and he told him to try it out and see it for himself. And that afternoon, at around 3 o'clock, Prabhupada used to give dictations to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to go to Prabhupada with the letters at 3 o'clock, and Prabhupada used to give dictations and in reply. And so after that, Tamal Krishna Maharaj came to me and he said, he told me that Prabhupada was praising my cooking. And so naturally, puffed up as I am, but Prabhupada set me straight. Next day I cooked. Prabhupada took one bite and Prabhupada was furious. He just told me, "You don't have any standard. One day you cook nicely and I praise you, and the next day you're gone." So I was naturally very worried that. So next day I cooked with a lot of care, and so then the next day when I served Srila Prabhupada was eating. So when I saw that Prabhupada was eating, then I got some courage, and I asked Srila Prabhupada whether the cooking was all right that day. Prabhupada said, "Yes, today it is all right." Then I told Prabhupada, I was in such anxiety today, and I was so afraid while cooking. Prabhupada said, "Yes, when you are serving your spiritual master, you should be in anxiety and you should be afraid." So one day, two very important people came to see Srila Prabhupada. They were the ex-governor of Madras, Shriman Narayan, and Ramkrishna Bajaj, the chairman of the Bajaj Industries. So they were quite closely acquainted to Srila Prabhupada, and they came to see Srila Prabhupada. And while they were talking, when they got to know that Prabhupada's health condition was not so nice, not so good, they suggested that Prabhupada went to Rishikesh in the foothills of Himalayas. And Prabhupada liked the idea. Rishikesh on the bank of the Ganges at the foothills of Himalayas, it's a holy place. And so they said that probably Prabhupada's health would improve if he went to Rishikesh. But and they made all the arrangements for Prabhupada. That there is a beautiful house in Rishikesh called Ganga Darshan, and so that was the most beautiful house in Rishikesh those days. Nowadays, of course, Rishikesh has become so crowded and so many structures have come up. And that house is still there, Ganga Darshan. And so they made arrangements for Prabhupada to stay in Ganga Darshan. And so a few of us traveled for Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Upendra Prabhu and myself went with Prabhupada. We flew from Bombay to Delhi, and then from there we drove to Rishikesh in Prabhupada's car. Prabhupada used to have a red ambassador, a maroon colored ambassador with a tilak sign in the front. And so that car was brought. That car actually was in Delhi. No, I think that car was kept in Vrindavan, and it was brought to Delhi, and from Delhi Prabhupada drove to Rishikesh. already few other devotees were there making the arrangements. They were, Trivikram Maharaj was there, Viraha Prakash and Pramana Swami. They were there. Pradyumna Prabhu also came. Pradyumna Prabhu used to be Prabhupada's secretary. Prabhupada's editor, Sanskrit editor. Like Pradyumna was a scholar, very nice devotee. And so we were in Rishikesh. It was very nice. Just a few of us around Srila Prabhupada. And in the evening, Prabhupada used to give darshan. And lots of people used to come. Rishikesh is a place where many sadhus were there and many pilgrims come. And so when people got to know that Prabhupada was there, they used to come for darshan of Srila Prabhupada in the evenings. And Prabhupada used to talk till quite late, like people wouldn't leave. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj made a policy that Prabhupada would give darshan only from 5 to 6, and at 6 o'clock we used to ask everyone to leave. And if there was somebody more keen, wanted to stay and speak, then we used to actually speak with them. We means the senior devotees, like I was just a new devotee at that time. But we all were very enthusiastic about preaching. I remember one day, there was one sadhu, quite young, and long beard, and Mayavadis actually. So, after everyone was asked to leave, this person was talking to me, and I started to talk to him. And the person was an impersonalist, like most of the sadhus in India. And in course of our discussion, I was trying to make him understand that Brahma Jyoti is only one aspect of the Lord's transcendental features, and beyond Brahma Jyoti is Paramatma realization, and finally it's through devotion one gets to know Him in His personal form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I quoted that verse, Vadanti tat tatta vidas tattam, and I was discussing with him on that, and he also was making counter argument, and our voice was becoming, I don't know about his voice, but I know that my voice was becoming louder and louder. And so anyway, finally that man left, and I went downstairs. Prabhupada used to live upstairs. It was a 2-story building. Prabhupada's quarters was upstairs, and we were staying downstairs. So I just went downstairs, and then Upendra came and told me that Prabhupada was calling me. And then it occurred to me that I was preaching to that man, just practically next to Srila Prabhupada's room, sitting on the veranda. And I was screaming at that man in such a way Prabhupada must have heard. And I became afraid that probably now Prabhupada would chastise me. Like I used to get chastised by Srila Prabhupada, left, right and center. And so I just went to Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada asked me, "What are we doing?" I said, "Prabhupada, I was preaching." So then Prabhupada asked, "What are you preaching?" So I just tried to repeat what I said. And Prabhupada was silent. He didn't say anything, and I was quite apprehensive. And so I asked Prabhupada, finally asked Prabhupada, did I say anything wrong? And Prabhupada said, no, you preached very nicely, you preached very well. So Prabhupada used to be very appreciative when he saw that we are taking our stand against impersonalists. So this is how we are. We used to have beautiful time there in Rishikesh. I used to cook for Srila Prabhupada, and I used to translate also. And I used to serve. After cooking, I would serve Srila Prabhupada. And by that time, all the other devotees, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Trivikram Maharaj, Upendra, they used to go to the Ganges and sport in the river. and then I used to, after serving Srila Prabhupada, I used to go and join them. And one of our big sport was, logs used to come floating. I think they cut the logs on the upstream, and then they put them in the river. That was the mode of transport of the logs, like big logs, and they used to come floating in the river. And probably somewhere down the river they used to collect them. And we used to climb on those logs and go downstream, floating in that log. And because Ganga is very, very strong there, the current is very strong. And this is how we were having such a beautiful time with Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada used to translate at night. But one day there was a big storm, and as a result of the storm, the electricity got cut off. I think some poles. Those days the electric wires, the cables used to be, line was through the poles, and some poles broke and the electricity supply got interrupted. And it was pitch dark everywhere, and Prabhupada was feeling very uncomfortable, and this storm was so raging, and storm and rain, heavy rain. So one night, it was already quite ominous, and it gets very cold also when it rained in Rishikesh. And so that in the night, one of us used to be with Srila Prabhupada. One of us would always be with Srila Prabhupada, even at night. And my time was from 12 to 2. So I was with Srila Prabhupada. At about 1 o'clock, Prabhupada called me, and I went to him, and Prabhupada just told me, he was lying on his bed. I lifted the mosquito net and asked Srila Prabhupada what he wanted. And Prabhupada told me that the time has come for him to leave his body, and he wanted to leave his body in Vrindavan. And he told me to make arrangements for him to take him to Vrindavan. He wanted to leave his body in Vrindavan. When Prabhupada spoke like that, I was shocked. I was completely stupefied. I didn't know what to do. But then I just ran downstairs and woke up Tamal Krishna Maharaj and told him what Prabhupada was saying. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj also was in great anxiety. He just rushed upstairs, and Prabhupada told him the same thing. The time has come for him to leave his body, and he wanted to leave his body in Vrindavan, so we should make arrangements to take him to Vrindavan immediately. So that night only we packed up everything, in the morning, we thought, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and I thought that we should arrange for Prabhupada to go by train, because the car ride may not be that comfortable for Prabhupada. So we went to Haridwar, we drove to Haridwar to make some arrangements to find out if there is some train to Delhi. There was a train, and we wanted to arrange a whole, at least one compartment for Srila Prabhupada in the first class. But we were told that there was not a single first class seat available. Like Indian railway system has improved quite a lot now. Those days Indian railway system was so messy actually. And anyway, so we came back and decided to drive Srila Prabhupada. So that day we went to Delhi. Prabhupada stayed there for that night in Delhi. It was hot, it was summertime. During the hot season, Prabhupada used to prefer to sleep on the roof. So Prabhupada was in Delhi. Prabhupada stayed on the roof that night, and I was with him. So I was just, when you would be with Srila Prabhupada at night, generally we would just stay up, we wouldn't go to sleep. I was just chanting softly in my beads. So Prabhupada noticed that. Prabhupada asked me what I was doing. I told him that I was attending him. And Prabhupada said, no, take rest. If I need, I will call you. And so I just laid down on the roof and slept there. Next morning we left for Vrindavan. That's the first time I actually went to Vrindavan, and I was so fortunate to come to Vrindavan, to go to Vrindavan with Srila Prabhupada. And I remember all of a sudden we saw that some Western devotees were, as the car was approaching at the Chattikara road from Agra road, it was Gunarnava Prabhu. He was the temple president of Vrindavan at that time. And he was in his motorbike. And as soon as he spotted Srila Prabhupada's car, he started his motorbike and zoomed off to give the news to Vrindavan Dev Temple that Prabhupada was coming. And so Prabhupada arrived in Vrindavan. There were quite a few devotees there at that time. And everyone was so ecstatic because all of a sudden Prabhupada just came to Vrindavan practically without any notice. So devotees were ecstatic. Prabhupada had the darshan of Gaur Nitai, Krishna Balaram and Radha Shyam Sundar. And after the darshan, Prabhupada went to his room, and there all the devotees followed Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada gave a darshan, and there Prabhupada broke the news why he came to Vrindavan. And in a flash of a moment, the whole mood changed. Like the devotees were so ecstatic, and all of a sudden after Srila Prabhupada made that announcement, they all became so sad, and like some devotees started to cry. And Prabhupada started to explain that he actually he quoted that verse, Dehi noshmin jatha dehi komaram jauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. And he explained tatha dehantara praptir. Like our stay, our tenure in this material nature is temporary. And dhiras tatra namuyati. A person who is situated in knowledge dhira, he doesn't become bewildered and he doesn't lament. In this way, Prabhupada explained that we should be prepared to leave this place at some point or other. And then after all the devotees left, Prabhupada called me and he told me, from now on, you don't cook for me and you don't force me to eat. What's the point in eating when there is no appetite? And I felt so helpless. Now Prabhupada is just preparing to leave his body. I thought of Parikshit Maharaj sitting on Prayupovation, stopping to eat and drink. And I felt that that's what Prabhupada was going to do now. Like he would stop eating. I told Tamal Krishna Maharaj what Prabhupada told me, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, what can be done? We can't force Srila Prabhupada. He told you not to cook, not to force him to eat. And I felt so helpless. We didn't know what to do now. Prabhupada was just stopped eating. And there was nothing that we could do. But in the meantime, the devotees, the senior devotees, leading devotees started to come to Vrindavan. When Tamal Krishna Maharaj was in Delhi, he sent a message to Adikeshav Maharaj in New York and told him, those days long distance calls was not so easy or not so frequent, not so convenient. Like nowadays we can just pick up our mobile phone and call anywhere in the world. It was not like that. I remember Tamal Krishna Maharaj was waiting, booked the call and he was waiting. And then finally when he got the line, got Adikeshav in the line, he told him that Prabhupada is going to Vrindavan to leave his body. And he wanted him to inform all the temples around the world, to all the GBCs and sannyasis. And the GBCs and sannyasis started to come from different parts of the world. And Prabhupada was there, like devotees, devotees were allowed to come and see him, but Prabhupada was not talking so much. He was not giving darshan, he was just lying on his bed. So, I think after about 3 days or so, I don't know exactly how many days, and many devotees gathered in Vrindavan, and they all had a meeting. I was not in that meeting, I was attending Srila Prabhupada. But I got to know that all the devotees in that meeting, they decided that they could not let Srila Prabhupada leave now. Prabhupada is a pure devotee, and if Prabhupada wants, then Krishna will allow him to stay on. And so then they all came into Prabhupada's room. Kirtananda Maharaj was the senior most, so he was the spokesman on behalf of all the devotees. And he came to Srila Prabhupada. The room was packed with devotees and Prabhupada was lying on his bed. And Kirtananda, just near Srila Prabhupada's bed, kneeling down, he started to tell that to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, we are so young. We just started our spiritual life and you are our father. If you leave now, what will happen to us? We'll become orphans. You are a pure devotee of Krishna. if you want, then Krishna will listen and grant your wish. So please stay on. And while speaking like that, he just broke down, crying. And Prabhupada very affectionately put his hand on his head. And he said, if you want, I will stay. And then Prabhupada wanted us to sit him up, and he wanted to drink something. And although Prabhupada was not drinking or anything, I used to just keep some fruit juice ready all the time. Like every few hours I would just change some fruit juice, make it ready, just in case Prabhupada wanted to drink something. But for those 3 days Prabhupada didn't take anything. And then Prabhupada said, give me something to drink. And I immediately ran and got that glass of pomegranate juice. Gave it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada drank. And then I started to cook again for Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada started to eat. And the second day or third day, after I served Srila Prabhupada prasad, after taking prasad, Prabhupada asked me whether I knew where is Gopinath Bazaar. So that was my first visit to Vrindavan, and I didn't even step out of the temple. So I told Prabhupada, I don't know, but I can find out. Tell me what you want. Prabhupada said, no, get somebody who knows Vrindavan. But I insisted, no, Prabhupada, please tell me what you want. I'll go and get it. And then Prabhupada said, you go to Gopinath Bazaar, and there is an Ayurvedic doctor named Banamali Kaviraj. So you tell him about me, and you remind him that he used to treat me before, so you ask him to come and treat me. So in the afternoon, after serving Srila Prabhupada, I went to Gopinath Bazaar. Late afternoon actually, around 4 o'clock, 4:30 I think. I went to Gopinath Bazaar. It was not difficult to find. Vrindavan is a small place, so I took a rickshaw, went to Gopinath Bazaar. I inquired where is Banamali Kaviraj, and people showed me where it was. And he was an old man, very old man. And I told him about Prabhupada, and he immediately remembered. Actually Prabhupada, everybody knew Prabhupada in Vrindavan. And but when I told him that Prabhupada wanted him to come and treat him, he said that he doesn't go anywhere. He didn't go anywhere. He was too old, his body was too weak. So I insisted, but he just kept on telling me that he is too frail to go anywhere. And I literally fell at his feet and begging, please come, because Prabhupada wanted you to treat him. So finally he agreed. So I brought him to Srila Prabhupada. So he checked Srila Prabhupada. Then there was one problem. He told me that he had to make the medicine himself before administering it to Srila Prabhupada. So I told him that, why don't you stay in the guest house, we'll make all the arrangements for you. And he said he didn't agree. So then I suggested, then you show me how to make the medicine. I'll make it. And so he complied. So he took me to the field and showed me some herbs. Mainly 2 herbs. One was called Punarnava, the leaves of Punarnava, and the other leaves of Pathar Kuchi. He showed me the plants, and he showed me how to crush them and extract the juice of those 2 leaves, and then mix. He gave some 2 salts, and one was reddish brown and the other was white. One I remember, the white one is actually sodium nitrate, and the other one I don't remember what. He may have told me what it was. Anyway, so I he showed me how to make the medicine and mix certain portion of salt, those two salts in that, and give it to Srila Prabhupada. And this medicine worked. Prabhupada's condition started to improve. And he used to come, like every day, he used to come and check Srila Prabhupada. And I used to go and fetch him in Prabhupada's car. I used to bring him and drop him back. So, Prabhupada's health conditions started to improve. But as Prabhupada's health conditions started to improve, Prabhupada started to become restless. And he wanted to go to the West and preach. And when I told that to Vanamali Kaviraj, that Prabhupada was planning to leave for the West, he told me that please don't let him go now. His medicine is working, his health is improving, and in winter I'll give him Makaradhaj. It's an Ayurvedic tonic sort of, but it's very strong. He explained that it's very strong, and he wants Prabhupada to get a little stronger, and the cold of the winter also will help him to retain the medicine. But Prabhupada was insistent. I could not really present it that forcefully, because see, in front of Prabhupada we were just some little children, and Prabhupada wanted to go, so who could stop Srila Prabhupada? And Prabhupada even used to say sometimes that a warrior, a soldier, doesn't die in bed. Meaning that he wanted to use his last drop of energy preaching. And Prabhupada's plan was to go first to London, then to New York, then Gita Nagari, then Los Angeles, and then Hawaii. And Prabhupada wanted to stay in Hawaii and continue with his translation of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the arrangement was made for Prabhupada to travel. Just the day when Prabhupada was leaving, he was dressed up. Prabhupada was sitting on his chair and waiting to leave. And I was sitting at his feet. And Prabhupada asked me, "Aren't you coming?" And then I told him that I didn't have my passport with me. And then Prabhupada said, "Okay, you join me in Hawaii." And so Prabhupada left. Prabhupada went to London, and Bhavananda came to see off Srila Prabhupada. And he took me back to Mayapur, and I went back to Mayapur. Stayed in Mayapur for about 10, 15, maybe 2 weeks or so. One afternoon, I was giving a class to a group of new devotees, and I got a telegram from Prabhupada. Actually, it was Tamal Krishna Maharaj who sent on behalf of Srila Prabhupada that come to Vrindavan immediately. So, the next day I went to Vrindavan. In the evening I arrived in Vrindavan, and I was told that Prabhupada was taking rest. So Upendra Prabhu, he saw me and he said, "Come in." And I went to Prabhupada's room, and I saw Prabhupada lying on his bed. And Prabhupada became so thin. Already Prabhupada's body became quite thin before he left for London. And now it seemed that Prabhupada's body was in the same level with the bed. He became so thin and his head was just jutting out and resting on the pillow. At one time Prabhupada started to cough and he woke up. Actually in London Prabhupada's health condition deteriorated quite badly and Prabhupada had a minor surgery. And so Prabhupada woke up. Upendra told that I came, that I was there. Prabhupada asked him where I was and he pointed out. And Prabhupada called me. So I went to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada wanted to sit up. So I helped him to sit up and we propped him with the pillows. And I could see Prabhupada's body became so thin. Just in 2 weeks' time it was. And I told Prabhupada, you became so thin. And Prabhupada said, yes. Now this body is just a set of bones in a bag of skin. And it was practically like that. Like it was, his body was just a set of bones in a bag of skin. There was hardly anything else in between. And I started to feel so guilty that I was thinking, why didn't I make an issue? Why didn't I tell everybody what Banamali Kaviraj was insisting, that Prabhupada didn't go? But there was no, again, I would reflect that there was no way we could actually imagine that Prabhupada's health condition would turn like this. As they say that hindsight is always 20/20. And since then, after Prabhupada's return, his health condition started to, it didn't improve at least. I went and called Banamali Kaviraj. He came, treated Srila Prabhupada, gave medicine, and I was giving that medicine. Then Banamali Kaviraj one day told me that his medicine was not working. And he said that he decided not to continue the treatment because his medicine is not working. And then another Kaviraj was brought from Calcutta. It seems that that person was a big talker, but he was talking like he would cure Srila Prabhupada. It all started one morning Prabhupada told us that he had a dream that a Ramanuja Kaviraj was making Makaradhaj for him. And so we thought that this was probably an indication. If we can get that Ramanuja Kaviraj, then probably Prabhupada's condition would improve with his treatment. And I was asked to go and look for a Ramanuja Kaviraj in Vrindavan. First place I went to was the Sri Rangam temple in Vrindavan. And I inquired whether there was any Kaviraj Ayurvedic doctor. They didn't have any, and in whole of Vrindavan I couldn't find any. There was one person who claimed, he's a Ramanuji, and he claimed that he is a Kaviraj, but when we spoke to him, mainly it was Bhagavan Prabhu who was speaking to him. I was translating, and he did not think much about that person. Tamal Krishna Maharaj suggested that I went to South India to Srirangam and look for a Ramanuja Kaviraj and bring him. But when he told that to Prabhupada, that he was thinking of sending me to Srirangam, and Prabhupada said, no, don't send him. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked Prabhupada, do you want him to be with you now? And Prabhupada said, yes. Then the temple president of Calcutta at that time was Adridharan Prabhu, and he got the news, and he found this one Kaviraj. His name was Damodar Prasad Shastri in Calcutta. He was a Ramanuja Kaviraj. So he came with much pomp and grandeur, making all kinds of claim that he will cure Srila Prabhupada. But personally I felt that he was a fake. And Prabhupada's health condition did not improve. And so this is how Srila Prabhupada came, and in order to shower his mercy upon us. And Prabhupada's mercy is still there in the form of his books, in the form of his ISKCON, in the form of his devotees. And Prabhupada will always be with us. One day, I cooked for Srila Prabhupada and I served. Srila Prabhupada told me, why are you wasting your time? You have so much to do, and you can see that I can't eat. So why do you cook every day? So I told Prabhupada, I cook with the hope that someday you may have the appetite and you would like to eat. Prabhupada said, no. I said, you'll feel better, you'll feel better and you would like to eat. And Prabhupada said, no, I'll get better only when I die. And when it just came to me like a big blow, and I just couldn't contain myself. I just broke down crying. Just the thought that Prabhupada may leave us was so devastating. And then Prabhupada, just in a very soft way, he just kept on telling me, is this what you learned from me? Is this what I taught you? Didn't I teach you that the soul is eternal and spiritually our existence is eternal and will always be there? And often I think of that incident and try to feel that Prabhupada is there. It's up to us. It's up to me to feel his presence with me in my life. And yes, often nowadays I do feel that Prabhupada is there. Prabhupada, although I am not able to see him, but Prabhupada is there. Prabhupada is watching. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON's founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. Shamabeta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Nugas ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
I just wanted to ask if you could just narrate that particular episode where you said that there were two groups, like when Prabhupada wanted to make a Gopal Parikrama, and how
Actually, Prabhupada expressed, it all started when one morning, His Holiness Lokanath Maharaj came, and he actually came after a pilgrimage with a few devotees to Badrinath. And he came and told Srila Prabhupada about his visit, pilgrimage to Badrinath. And then he described how he offered Prabhupada's books to Vasudev, because there's a cave where it is understood that Vasudev is still there. And then he mentioned about Bhima, where Bhima fell. Like when Pandavas went on Mahaprasthan, the last of the Pandavas to fall was Bhima, where he left his body. And then soon after that, Prabhupada just mentioned that Prabhupada wanted to go on a Vrindavan parikrama on a bullock cart. Now Prabhupada's condition was so frail that it was practically impossible for Prabhupada to go out on a bullock cart parikrama of Vrindavan. And because it just occurred to me that Lokanath Maharaj mentioned about Bhima's Mahaprasthan, and soon after that Prabhupada thinking of a bullock cart parikrama. So it occurred to me that Prabhupada was going to leave for Mahaprasthan, like go out to leave his body. But the devotees were excited, but some devotees, some of us, those who were serving Srila Prabhupada closely, we could not approve of that or accept that Prabhupada would go out on a bullock cart parikrama, because the roads in Vrindavan are quite bumpy and bullock carts doesn't have any spring, so it will be so rough. And Prabhupada's body was so frail at that time that we had to help Prabhupada to turn to his side. He would get tired of just lying on his back, so he would ask us to help him to turn to his side. And while we used to turn Srila Prabhupada, and if we are not careful, then Prabhupada would feel hurt. Prabhupada would get hurt. And in that condition, to take Prabhupada to a bullock cart, was unthinkable. But Prabhupada himself said, and the devotees were excited. Actually, the devotees, those who were not serving Srila Prabhupada so closely, they didn't know his health condition, and they were excited that Prabhupada will go out in a bullock cart parikrama. And the devotees naturally would go with him, and they were even planning to tent out at night. And Prabhupada used to be cold even inside the room with a heater. We used to put 2-3 blankets and still Prabhupada would feel cold. And now to put Prabhupada in a tent under a tree, it was completely crazy. And there was no way we could actually stop Prabhupada, but at the same time I was thinking at the back of my mind that I don't want to make the same mistake when Prabhupada went abroad living in Vrindavan, and I was determined to somehow or other stop Prabhupada. And I was also surprised that Tamal Maharaj, Bhavananda Maharaj, they were not actually making any objections. So, and it was like they were not making. Later on, I found out that they had a different plan. They had a plan to speak to Srila Prabhupada at 2:00 at night. It was the next day Srila Prabhupada was planning to go out. The bullock cart was already arranged. It was there right in front of the temple, and all the arrangements were being made. And so I was thinking that, I was, that day, Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, godbrother of Srila Prabhupada, was very dear to Srila Prabhupada. I thought that I'll request Babaji Maharaj to stop Srila Prabhupada from going. And I was waiting for Babaji Maharaj to come, and then at some point in the evening I went to the kitchen doing something, I don't remember exactly what. And then when I came back to Prabhupada's room, I found that Babaji Maharaj is already there. Prabhupada already told him about that going out in Vrindavan Parikrama, and he invited Babaji Maharaj also to come. And they were making all kinds of plans about that. So I was completely disappointed. Now what to do? Then I got an idea. So I went to the kitchen, made a plate of prasad, and brought it to the room next to, the adjacent to Srila Prabhupada's bedroom, there was another ante-room. So I kept it there, and I went to Prabhupada and told Prabhupada, I got some prasad for Babaji Maharaj. And so he said, bring the prasad, bring it here. I said, Prabhupada, I brought it to the next room. And then Prabhupada told Babaji Maharaj, please go and take some prasad. So I took Babaji Maharaj to the next room, and and I told him about the whole incident, that Loknath Maharaj telling about Bhima's Mahaprasthan, and soon after that Prabhupada is speaking about going out on Vrindavan Parikrama on a bullock cart, and Prabhupada's health condition is like this, and to me it seems that Prabhupada is going out to leave his body. And so then Babaji Maharaj said, no, then he shouldn't go. And I told him that Babaji Maharaj, the only person who can actually stop him is you. So Babaji Maharaj said, me? He was actually a very humble person. He said, me? How can I tell him? I said, Babaji Maharaj, you are the only one who can actually tell him not to go. So then Babaji Maharaj got up, washed his hands, and marched into Prabhupada's room. And he said, I heard everything and you cannot go. And then Prabhupada said, well, if you don't want me to go, then I won't go. And when I heard that, I just jumped in joy, and I ran to give that news to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And when I was just climbing up the stairs of the guest house, I saw Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Bhavananda coming down. And and I told them, right on the stairs, I told them what happened. And they were actually also, they were in such anxiety that they couldn't wait till 2 o'clock at night. So they just thought they will come and tell to Prabhupada. So we just ran into Prabhupada's room. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj just burst out, Prabhupada, you put us through such anxiety, we do not know how to deal with you. And in this way he just kept on speaking. And then Prabhupada just turned to Babaji Maharaj and said, see how much they love me. And this is how Prabhupada was requested not to go out on a bullock cart parikrama at that time. Is that all right? That's what it is.
Some incident where somebody was coming and you locked the doors inside.
Well, that's a detail. Not I didn't lock it actually. It was anyway, another sannyasi was very excited about taking Srila Prabhupada. In bullock cart parikrama. When he saw us running into Prabhupada's room like that, he also came running behind us. But Anirdesha Bapu, Bhakti Vidyapurna Maharaj, he was a brahmachari at that time. He was also with us, and when he saw him coming, he just closed the door. And he also was a very good friend of mine. Later on I told him what actually happened, and he had a big laugh. Those were the wonderful days with Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande.
Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj ki Jai.
Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada.